She belonged to the Selenari, a species of tall and graceful beings who glowed with soft light. Her people had smooth skin that shone like moonlight. They had wings made of thin membranes that sparkled with beautiful patterns. Every Selenari was born with perfect symmetry. Their left side matched their right side exactly. Their patterns were mirrors of each other. Their eyes were always the same color. But Violet was different. Her glow did not stay steady like others. It flickered and jumped without warning. Her left wing had swirling patterns that did not match her right wing at all, and her eyes, the feature her people valued most, were two completely different colors. One was bright gold. The other was deep violet. Among the Selenari, this was the greatest shame. Symmetry meant order. Symmetry meant perfection. Symmetry meant worth. And asymmetry meant chaos. It meant failure. It meant something broken. For 200 years, Irith had lived in the Crystal Spire. It was a tall tower made of glass and light, far from the royal palace. Her mother, the Empress Celenthis, had placed her there when she was still young. The Empress said it was for protection, but Violet knew the truth. It was a prison. A beautiful prison, but a prison all the same. She had servants who brought her food and books. She had teachers who educated her through screens. But she had no friends, no visitors, no one who looked at her without pity or disgust in their eyes. Asymmetry is chaos, her mother had told her once, long ago. Chaos cannot rule. You understand, don't you, child? Dilith had nodded. She had understood. She was not fit to be seen. She was not fit to be loved. She was not fit to be anything at all then one day. Everything changed. The Galactic Concord, the great alliance of spacefaring species, announced something new. A species called humans had recently joined the stars. They were young and curious and eager to meet others. They would host something called the Interspecies Cultural Exchange Summit on their homeworld, a planet called Earth. Every major species would send a representative. And the Empress saw an opportunity. She called Violet to the palace for the first time in 50 years. Violet stood before her mother's throne, her veil covering her mismatched eyes. Her wing pressed tight against her back to hide its strange patterns. "But you will go to Earth," the Empress said. Her voice was cold and flat. "You will represent the Selenari Empire." Violet's glow flickered with surprise. "Me, mother? But I thought you thought correctly. You are not suitable for court? But this assignment removes you from the Empire while appearing generous. The humans are new. They do not matter yet. You cannot embarrass us there." The words cut deep, but Violet had long ago learned not to show pain. She bowed her head. "As you command, mother." 2 weeks later, Violet arrived on Earth. The planet was strange. It had blue skies and green plants and water that fell from clouds. The air smelled different. The gravity felt different. Everything was different. But what struck Violet most were the humans themselves. They were small compared to her people. They had no glow, no wings, no bioluminescence. Their skin came in many different shades. Their hair grew in different colors and textures. Their faces were not symmetrical at all. If she looked closely, she could see that their features were slightly uneven, slightly mismatched. Yet they walked openly. They laughed loudly. They showed themselves without shame. Violet did not understand. She kept her veil on. She kept her wing hidden. She spoke only when spoken to, and even then, she kept her answers short. She expected the humans to sense her wrongness, to look at her with the same disgust her own people showed. On her first day, during the welcoming ceremony, she climbed a set of stairs. The steps were designed for human feet, not Selenari ones. She stumbled. Her glow flickered wildly in panic as she felt herself falling. A hand caught her arm. Violet looked up to see a human woman with brown skin and warm eyes. The woman smiled at her. "Careful there," the woman said gently. "These stairs can be tricky." Violet straightened herself, mortified. Her glow was still flickering in what any Selenari would recognize, a shameful loss of control. But the human woman did not seem disgusted. Instead, her smile grew wider. I love your eyes, by the way, the woman said. Heterochromia is considered beautiful where I come from. Then she walked away to greet other guests. Violet stood frozen on the stairs. She did not know the word the woman had used, heterochromia. She did not understand what it meant, but she understood the tone. It was warm. It was kind. It was genuine. It was not discussed that night. Violet could not sleep. She lay in her quarters in the human diplomatic building, staring at the ceiling. The woman's words kept repeating in her mind. Beautiful. The woman had used that word. About her eyes. Her wrong, mismatched, shameful eyes. Finally, she rose from her bed and went to the information terminal the humans had provided. She typed the strange word into the search system. Heterochromia. The results filled her screen. Heterochromia was a condition where a creature had two different colored eyes. It occurred naturally in humans and many of their animals. And as she scrolled through the results, Violet's hands began to shake. There were thousands of images. Humans with one blue eye and one brown. Humans with one green eye and one gold. Animals with split-colored gazes. And every image, every article, every comment treated this trait as something special. Something rare. Something beautiful. Violet looked at a photograph of a human woman with eyes just like hers. One light and one dark. The woman was smiling. She was on the cover of something called a magazine. The headline said she was a famous actress, beloved by millions. For 200 years, Violet had been told her eyes made her unworthy of love. For 200 years, she had hidden them in shame. And here was an entire species that saw the same trait and called it beautiful. She closed the terminal and sat in the darkness. Her glow flickered, but not from fear this time. She did not know what she was feeling. She had no name for it. But somewhere deep inside her, in a place that had been cold and dark for 2 centuries, something small and warm began to glow. Tomorrow, she would learn more about these strange humans. Tomorrow, she would begin to wonder if everything she had been taught was wrong. The cultural exchange. Summit was meant to last 30 solar cycles. By the 5th day, Violet had collected 17 compliments from humans. Each one confused her more than the last. It started small. A human server at a diplomatic dinner told her that her flickering glow was lovely, like candlelight. A journalist asked if he could photograph her wings because the mismatched patterns were fascinating. A young diplomat said her violet and gold eyes reminded him of a sunset. Violet did not know how to respond. She had spent 200 years learning that these features were flaws. Hearing them praised felt like learning that water flowed upward or that fire was cold. On the 6th day, she attended a cultural presentation in a large human building called a museum. Different species had set up displays showing their art and history. Violet wandered through them quietly, still wearing her veil, still keeping her wing pressed close. A small human approached her. It was a child, barely reaching her waist, with curly dark hair and bright, curious eyes. "Excuse me," the child said. "Are you a princess?" Violet looked down at her. "I am. Or I was. It is complicated. You look like a fairy princess," the child said seriously. "Like from 2 different fairy tales combined into one. That's extra special." The child's mother hurried over, apologizing for the interruption. But Violet could not stop thinking about those words. 2 fairy tales combined. Extra special, not wrong. Not broken special. She began to study the humans more closely after that. She watched how they moved through the world. They were asymmetrical themselves, she realized. Their hearts sat on one side of their chest, not the center. Many had small marks on their skin called freckles or moles, scattered without pattern. Some had scars from injuries. Some had birthmarks. Some had features they were born with that made them look different from other humans, yet they did not hide. They walked openly. They showed their faces, their bodies, their differences. Some even decorated their differences, drawing attention to them with clothing or jewelry. Violet did not understand. Among her people, any flaw was hidden. Any asymmetry was corrected if possible or concealed if not. The idea of celebrating a difference was completely foreign to her. Her assigned guide was a human named Dr. Marcus Chen. He was a xenanthropologist, which meant he studied alien cultures and helped visitors adjust to Earth. He had kind eyes behind thin glasses and a patient way of explaining things. On the 10th day, he took her to a garden. It was full of plants and flowers and trees, all growing in seemingly random patterns. Nothing was symmetrical. Nothing matched. Yet it was beautiful. "You seem surprised by us," Marcus said as they walked along a winding path. Violet considered lying, but she was tired of hiding. "I am," she admitted. "My people value symmetry above all else. We believe that perfection comes from matching, from order, from sameness. I have spent my entire life being told that my appearance represents chaos and failure, that no one could ever find me acceptable." Marcus stopped walking. He turned to face her fully. "Your Highness," he said carefully, "I have traveled to 14 different alien worlds. I have met beings made of pure light. I have spoken with creatures that exist in dimensions I cannot see. In all my travels across all those species, you are one of the most striking individuals I have ever met." Violet's glow flickered wildly. Among her people, such flickering was shameful, a loss of control. She waited for him to look away in disgust. But Marcus only smiled. "I mean that sincerely. Your eyes are remarkable. Your patterns are unlike anything I have ever seen. You are not flawed. You are unique." There was that word again, unique. Humans used it often, and always as a good thing. "I do not understand your people," Violet confessed. "How can you see the same things that my people call ugly and call them beautiful?" Marcus thought about this for a long moment. "Perhaps beauty is not a fixed thing," he said finally. "Perhaps it depends on how you look at it. My people have a saying, 'Beauty is in the eye of the beholder.' It means that what one person finds beautiful, another might not, and what one culture calls flawed, another might call extraordinary." They continued walking in comfortable silence. Violet found herself relaxing for the first time since she had arrived, maybe for the first time in centuries. That evening, she returned to her quarters and did something she had never done before. She sent a message to her mother requesting permission to extend her stay on Earth. She said it was for diplomatic purposes to strengthen ties with the humans. But in truth, she simply did not want to leave yet. The response came 2 hours later. It was only 3 words: "As you wish." No warmth. No curiosity about why she wanted to stay. Just cold permission. But there was a second message. This one was from her younger sister Thessaly, who was next in line for the throne, since Violet had been declared unsuitable. "Dear sister," the message read, "I hope you are well on this strange human world. I must warn you of something. Since your departure, Mother has been meeting with the council. They are discussing your replacement as heir. They are making it permanent. Some at court are saying that your exile might become official if you stay away too long. Be careful, Vera. Some exiles become permanent. Your loving sister, Thess." Violet read the message 3 times. For 200 years, she had dreamed of escape. She had wished for freedom from her crystal tower, from the eyes that looked at her with shame, from the court that saw her as a mistake. Now she had that freedom. Earth was strange and wonderful and full of people who did not see her as broken. Here, she could walk in gardens. Here she could receive compliments. Here she could be called beautiful. But if she stayed too long, she might never be able to go home. She looked at her reflection in the window, one gold and one violet. For the first time, she tried to see them the way Marcus did, the way the humans did. She was not sure she could, not yet, but she wanted to try. She saved her sister's message and closed her terminal. Then she walked to the window and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there was her home, a home that had never wanted her. And here was Earth, a strange world full of strange people who smiled at her differences. The choice should have been easy. But choices, Violet was learning, were rarely as simple as they seemed. She would stay a little longer. She would learn more about these humans and their strange ideas about beauty and worth, and she would figure out what she truly wanted from her life. For the first time in 200 years, the future felt like something to hope for rather than something to fear. 2 months had passed since Violet first arrived on Earth. In that time, Everything had changed. She no longer wore her veil. The first time she removed it in public, her hands had trembled. She had expected gasps of horror, whispers of disgust, eyes turning away in shame. Instead, a human child had pointed and said, "Look, Mama, her eyes are like jewels." The mother had smiled and agreed. That was the moment Violet began to believe that maybe, just maybe, the humans were telling the truth. Marcus had become her constant companion. He took her to museums and showed her art that celebrated imperfection. There was a Japanese tradition called kintsugi, where broken pottery was repaired with gold. The cracks became part of the beauty. The damage became decoration. The humans did not try to hide that something had been broken. They made the breaking beautiful. Violet had stood in front of a kintsugi bowl for a very long time. Her glow shifting through colors that Marcus had learned meant deep emotion. "We have nothing like this on my world," she whispered. "If something breaks, we throw it away. If someone breaks, we hide them." Marcus stood beside her, close but not touching. "Perhaps that says more about your world than it does about the broken things." She visited concert halls and listened to human music. It was not like Selinari music, which was all perfect harmonies and predictable patterns. Human music had unexpected notes, sudden changes, rhythms that did not follow rules. At first it sounded like chaos to her. But the more she listened, the more she heard something else. Emotion, passion, life. She read human poetry about scars and struggles and differences. She read stories about heroes who were not perfect, who had flaws and failures, who were loved anyway. But she read about something called self-acceptance, the idea that a person could look at their own imperfections and choose to love themselves. This was the most foreign concept of all. Among the Selinari, worth came from outside. It was given by others based on how well you matched the ideal. The idea that someone could give worth to themselves seemed impossible, arrogant, wrong, but the humans did not see it that way. One evening, Violet sat in Marcus's apartment. He lived in a small space filled with artifacts from his travels, items from a dozen different worlds. She had begun spending more time here, away from the formal diplomatic building, away from the eyes of other species who still looked at her strangely. "I want to understand something," she said, curling her legs beneath her on his couch. Her wing relaxed for once, spreading slightly, its mismatched patterns visible in the warm light. "Among my people, partnerships are arranged. They're based on genetic compatibility and aesthetic harmony. Two people who match well are paired together. Love, as you describe it, does not exist in our culture. There's no word for it." Marcus set down his cup of tea. "That sounds lonely. Never thought of it that way. It was simply how things were." She paused, her glow shifting to softer colors. "But here, I have watched humans choose each other. Not because of matching genes or matching appearances, but because of something else. Something I do not have a name for." "Connection," Marcus offered. "Compatibility of the soul, not just the body. Finding someone who sees you, truly sees you, and chooses to stay." Violet was quiet for a long moment. I assumed I would live my life alone in my tower. I accepted that no one would ever want me, that I would watch others form bonds that would never be offered to me. She looked at him, her mismatched eyes catching the light. "But here I have begun to wonder what I might be worthy of." The space between them seemed to shrink. Marcus's hand rested on the table, close to hers. Neither moved to close the gap. Neither pulled away. "Violet," Marcus said softly, "you are worthy of everything. You always were. You just needed to find people who could see it." Her glow brightened, warm gold mixing with soft violet. She opened her mouth to respond, and then his console pinged with an urgent alert. Marcus frowned and checked the message. His expression changed, growing serious, then concerned. He looked at Violet. "What is it?" she asked, already knowing from his face that it was bad news. "An official communication from the Galactic Concord Liaison Office." He paused. "The Selinari Empress is coming to Earth. She will arrive in 3 days." Violet's glow went cold. Her mother had not left the Selinari Empire in over 1,000 years. She did not travel. She did not visit. She summoned others to her. If she was coming to Earth personally, it could only mean one thing. "She is coming for me," Violet said. Her voice was calm, but her light flickered with fear. Marcus reached across the table and took her hand. His skin was warm against hers, soft where hers was luminous. "Whatever happens," he said firmly, "you are not facing it alone, not anymore." Violet looked at their joined hands. Such a simple gesture. Such a human gesture. Among her people, casual touch was rare. Touch was formal, controlled, meaningful. This was meaningful too, but in a different way, in a warmer way. She squeezed his fingers gently. "I spent 200 years alone," she said. "I think I am ready to try something different." Outside the window, the sun was setting over the human city. Colors streamed across the sky, gold and violet and every shade between. It was asymmetrical. It was chaotic. It was beautiful. And somewhere in the dark of space, her mother was coming. The Empress who had locked her away. The mother who had never loved her. Byrith did not know what would happen when she arrived. She knew one thing for certain. She was not the same person who had left the Crystal Spire. Earth had changed her, and the humans had changed her, and she would not go back to being hidden ever again. Whatever came next, she would face it with her veil off and her head held high. For the first time in her life, she believed she was worth fighting for. The Empress Celenthis descended from her ship, like a goddess stepping down from the heavens. She was everything Violet was not. Her symmetry was perfect, her left side a flawless mirror of her right. Her glow was steady and brilliant, never flickering, never faltering. Her eyes were twin pools of pure silver, cold as distant stars. She moved with absolute control, absolute grace, absolute certainty. Beside her, Violet felt small and wrong, just as she always had. The Empress had brought a full retinue of courtiers and guards. They stood in perfect formation behind her, their glows synchronized, their expressions blank. This was the power of the Selenari Empire. This was what perfection looked like. The meeting was held in a private room at the Human Diplomatic Center. The humans had offered to be present, but the Empress had refused. This was a family matter, she said. It would be handled privately. Vyrith entered the room alone. Her mother sat on a chair that the humans had provided, but she made it look like a throne. Her silver eyes tracked Violet as she approached, taking in every detail. The missing veil, the visible wing, the unashamed display of asymmetry. "Daughter," the Empress said. Her voice was ice. Mother Violet kept her voice steady. "You've changed. You display your flaws openly now. Is this what the humans have taught you? To abandon all dignity? They have taught me that I am not flawed. They have taught me that different does not mean lesser. They have shown me that worth is not determined by symmetry." The Empress's glow flickered once, the Selenari equivalent of a scoff. How touching. "The primitives have filled your head with nonsense." She leaned forward. "But I did not travel across the galaxy for philosophy lessons. I am here because you are needed." Violet blinked. "Needed? Your sister Thessaly has proven unsuitable for the throne. She lacks the temperament. Your other siblings are too young or too foolish. The council requires an heir of direct bloodline. You are the only option remaining." The Empress's voice remained flat, as if she was discussing a supply chain issue rather than her daughter's life. "You will return to the Empire immediately. You will submit to genetic correction therapy, and you will take your place as heir." Genetic correction therapy. Violet knew what that meant. She had seen others undergo it. The procedure rewrote the body at the deepest level, forcing it into proper symmetry. It was painful beyond description. It had a 40% fatality rate, and those who survived were never quite the same. Something essential was lost in the process. Some spark, some life. "You want to fix me, Violet?" said slowly. "I want to make you suitable. There is a difference. And if I refuse," the Empress's eyes narrowed, "you do not have that option. You are a princess of the blood. Your duty is to the Empire." Something shifted inside Violet. Something that had been growing since she first set foot on Earth, since the first human had smiled at her eyes, since Marcus had taken her hand. "No, The word hung in the air between them. No. The Empress's glow flared with anger. You dare refuse me? I do. Violet stood straighter. Her own glow flickered, but not from fear this time. From something else, something stronger. I will not submit to correction therapy. I will not let you erase who I am. I will not spend my life pretending to be something I am not, just to satisfy the Empire's obsession with symmetry.
Ow.
The Empress rose from her chair. She was taller than Violet, more imposing, more powerful. You would shame our bloodline for these primitives? These chaotic, short-lived creatures who cannot even agree among themselves what beauty means. Perhaps that is exactly why I choose them, Violet replied. They have shown me something our Empire never could. That being different does not mean being broken. That I am not a mistake simply because I do not match. That I am worthy of love exactly as I am. Mother and daughter stood facing each other. 200 years of pain and shame and loneliness hung between them. Then the door burst open. Marcus rushed in, pushing past the Selenari guards who tried to stop him. His face was flushed, his breathing quick. Virlith, you need to see this, he said urgently. Everyone needs to see this. He held up a tablet, showing a news broadcast. The image showed crowds of humans gathered outside the Selenari embassy. Thousands of them. They held signs and banners. Their voices rose in chants. Imperfection is beautiful. Read one sign. Virlith stays read. Another unique is not ugly, declared a third. The news anchor was explaining that word of the Empress's ultimatum had leaked. Social media had exploded. Humans across the planet were rallying in support of the asymmetrical princess who had captured their hearts. Protests were forming in dozens of cities. Petitions were circulating with millions of signatures. The Empress stared at the screen, her perfect composure cracking for the first time. This is absurd, she hissed. They are making a spectacle of our family's shame. They are making a statement, Marcus corrected. They are saying that your daughter's worth is not determined by your Empire's standards. And the Galactic Concord is watching. So are your allies and your rivals. How you respond to this will matter. The Empress understood the threat beneath his words. Forcing Virlith to return now would cause an interstellar incident. The humans were new to galactic politics, but they had powerful friends. The Selenari Empire could not afford such scandal, but leaving Virlith would mean admitting that the Empire's ideology was flawed, that asymmetry was not shameful, that everything the Selenari believed might be wrong. The room fell silent. The chants of the crowd outside filtered through the walls. Virlith looked at her mother, at the woman who had locked her away for 2 centuries, at the Empress who had never held her, never comforted her, never told her she was loved. Then she reached up and removed the silver circlet from her brow. It was the symbol of her bloodline, the mark of her royal heritage. She had worn it since she was old enough to walk. She set it at her mother's feet. I am no longer your heir, she said quietly. I renounce my claim to the throne. I renounce my position in the court. I renounce everything but my name. She met her mother's silver eyes with her own mismatched ones. I am simply Virlith now, and I am staying. The Empress looked at the circlet on the ground. For one moment, something flickered in her eyes. Pain? Regret? Loss. Then the cold mask returned. So be it, she said. You are no longer my daughter. You are no longer Selenari. May you find whatever you are looking for among these primitives. She stepped over the circlet and walked toward the door. At the threshold, she paused. You will never be welcome home again, she said without turning around. I know, Virlith replied, but for the first time in my life, I do not want to go back. The Empress left. Her retinue followed. The door closed behind them. Virlith stood in the empty room, lighter than she had ever felt. 200 years of duty and shame and expectation had just fallen away. Marcus moved to stand beside her. Are you okay? He asked softly. Virlith looked at him. Her glow was steady now, warm and bright. I am free, she said. I think I am more than okay. Outside, the humans were still chanting her name. Thousands of voices raised in support of someone they had never met. simply because they believed in her right to be herself. She smiled. It was still a strange expression for her face, but it felt right. "I think I would like to meet them," she said. "The people who fought for me." Marcus offered his hand. "Then let's go." Together, they walked toward the sound of the crowd. 1 year had passed since Virelith renounced her crown. She stood at a podium in the Great Hall of the United Nations. Looking out at an audience of thousands, delegates from 12 different species sat in the vast chamber. Cameras broadcast her image across the galaxy. Billions of beings on hundreds of worlds were watching. She was not afraid. Virelith had changed in ways she could not have imagined. She no longer hid her wings. The mismatched patterns were visible for all to see, adorned now with delicate human-made jewelry that caught the light. Her eyes, one gold and one violet, were open and unashamed. Her glow was warm and steady, flickering only when she felt strong emotion. She wore a dress designed by a human artist, someone who had seen her image and wanted to create something worthy of her uniqueness. It was asymmetrical on purpose, flowing differently on each side, celebrating the very quality that had once been her greatest shame. And on her finger there was a ring. Marcus stood to the side of the stage, watching her with pride. 6 months ago, they had married in a human ceremony. Her people had no word for what they were to each other. Humans called it husband and wife, partners, soulmates. The ceremony had been small. Marcus's family had welcomed her with open arms. His mother had cried and hugged her. His father had told her she was beautiful. His nieces and nephews had declared her the coolest aunt in the galaxy. For someone who had never known family, it was overwhelming. But it was also wonderful. Now she stood before the galaxy, ready to share her story. "I spent 200 years believing I was unlovable," she began. Her voice was calm and clear. "My own people taught me that my worth was determined by my appearance, that my differences made me fundamentally lesser, that I was a mistake of nature, something to be hidden away and forgotten." She paused, letting her glow ripple with the emotion she no longer tried to hide. "I lived in a crystal tower, alone, watching others live lives that would never be offered to me. I accepted that I would never be touched, never be wanted, never be loved. I accepted that I was broken because everyone around me said so." The chamber was silent. Every eye was fixed on her. Then I came to Earth. I met a species that celebrated uniqueness. They looked at my mismatched eyes and called them beautiful. They saw my asymmetrical wings and said they were fascinating. They watched my flickering glow and compared it to fireflies on a summer night. She smiled at Marcus. He smiled back. They introduced me to their art, which finds beauty in broken things repaired with gold. They played me their music, which thrives on unexpected notes and irregular rhythms. They showed me their poetry, which praises scars and struggles and the courage to be different. She turned back to the audience. The humans did not fix me. They did not change me. They simply showed me what was already true, that I was never broken. That different does not mean lesser. That worth is not given by others, but exists within each of us, waiting to be recognized. Her voice grew stronger. "I cannot change the Selenari Empire overnight. I cannot undo centuries of belief with a single speech. But I can stand here exactly as I am and tell every being in this galaxy who has ever been told they were wrong or broken or unworthy. You are not." She let her glow blaze bright. Gold and violet light mixing together. "You are unique. You are irreplaceable. And somewhere in this vast universe, there are people who will see you clearly and love what they see. Not despite your differences, but because of them. Not in spite of who you are, but because of exactly who you are." The applause began with the humans. They rose to their feet, clapping and cheering, but it did not stop there. Slowly, delegates from other species joined in. Beings who had never seen eye to eye found themselves united in this moment. The sound grew and grew until the great hall shook with it. Virelith stepped back from the podium. Marcus was there, taking her hand, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "You were amazing," he said. "I told the truth," she replied. "It was surprisingly easy." They walked together to the great windows at the back of the hall. Outside, ships were descending from the sky. They had been arriving all week, carrying visitors from across the galaxy. Some were diplomats on official business. Some were tourists curious about the planet that had changed a princess, but many of them were something else entirely. They were refugees of a sort. Beings from dozens of species who had heard Virelith's story and found hope in it. Young Selenari who had been hidden away for their own imperfections. Survivors of correction therapy from various worlds, forever changed by procedures, meant to make them normal. 8 artists and thinkers and dreamers, who would never fit into their own societies. They came to Earth because they had heard. It was a place where different was not dangerous, where unique was celebrated, where you could be yourself without fear. A message arrived on Virelith's personal communicator. It was from a young Selenari girl, barely 50 years old, who had smuggled herself off-world rather than face correction therapy. Your Highness, the message read, I saw your speech. I have eyes like yours, one blue and one green. My parents told me I was a mistake, but you said I am not broken. You said I am unique. You said I am worthy. I believe you. Thank you for showing me that there is another way to live. I am coming to Earth. I hope to meet you someday. Virelith read the message 3 times. Then she saved it to the folder where she kept all such messages. There were hundreds now. Each one was precious. Marcus looked over her shoulder. Another one? A girl with heterochromia. She escaped correction therapy. She is coming here, good Marcus said. She will find a home. Earth was changing. The Cultural Exchange Summit had ended months ago, but something new had taken its place. A growing movement. A quiet revolution. Species across the galaxy were beginning to question old assumptions about perfection and worth. It would take time. Perhaps centuries. Perhaps longer. Change was slow, especially change in beliefs held for thousands of years. But it was happening, and it had started with a princess who was told she was unlovable, and a species that showed her she was lovely. Virelith turned to look at her husband, at his kind eyes and warm smile, at the hand that held hers so gently. Thank you, she said softly. For what? For catching me when I stumbled, for looking at me and seeing something beautiful, for loving me when I did not believe I could be loved. Marcus squeezed her hand. The love was always there, waiting for you. I just helped you find it. Behind them, the great hall was still buzzing with conversation and energy. Before them, through the window, the sky was full of stars. Somewhere out there was the Selenari Empire, still clinging to its old ways. But here, on this small blue planet, a new story was being written, a story about the power of acceptance, about the courage to be different, about finding worth in the places you least expect, a story about an alien princess who thought herself unlovable, till humanity showed her she was lovely, and she was. She always had been. She just needed to find the right eyes to see it. The sun was setting over the human city, painting the sky in shades of gold and violet, Virelith's colors. The colors she no longer hid. She leaned into Marcus's embrace and watched the light change. For the first time in her life, she was exactly where she was meant to be. She was home.